Hello. So, this is my year end review, and it is so late for that. I was probably supposed to have recorded this video like a month ago. It is January 23rd when I'm recording this. So yeah, this is my comprehensive whole 2023 reading year in review kind of thing, where I will be ranking every book I read and kind of reflecting on all of them more in a different way than like their individual review videos. And I'm also going to be talking about what's going to be happening 2024. Because I have different goals. Let me just pull up my story graph here so I can make sure I actually know everything I read. Okay. After doing so much writing down and notes and math and everything, I finally have it. Here's my comprehensive list of my favorite to least favorite books of the year. I don't know if I'm out of focus or not, or if I have to go back a little. I don't know. Anyway, at number 12, we have the worst book I read all year, The Bell Jar. And you might be like, okay, Sam, we just heard about this, right? In your last video, we just heard about this. So I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm just going to say I hated it. And I thought 1.5 might be a little generous. The only reason it gets that is because the start was good. That's it. That's it. I hate it because I wanted it to be so good, and I knew it could have been. Anyway, and moving on to number 11, we have The Catcher in the Rye, which I think I demoted to a 2.2, or no, 2.5, sorry. Yeah, I demoted it, I'm pretty sure. Just upon further reflection, I'm never ever going to read this book again. This one was also just disappointing. It just fizzles out into nothing. It's like whoever wrote this didn't know how to end a book, and the main character just becomes more and more unlikable as the book goes on, which I don't think was intended at all. It doesn't seem like it's supposed to be. Anyway, yeah, major flop. Next, we have number 10, Another Brooklyn, which got a 3. Pros and cons. Pros. It is short. It has decent characters, and the writing was okay. Cons, every single scene is like 3 sentences long. It has almost no semblance of any kind of plot, and not in a good way. Like, nothing happens. Like, I can't remember a single thing that actually happens in that book. It's kind of just this awkward reminiscing the whole time, and I didn't enjoy that. So that's why I got a 3. Maybe I'm being a little bit too lenient. I've already demoted it so much. I think I gave it a 3.25 before. No. Okay. And number 9, we have The Hobbit, which I gave 3.25. I think this might be lower than what I gave it. I don't think so. I think it's probably what I gave this book in my original review. Overall, this book kind of just let me know that I don't like his writing that much. And it also made me just think even more that the first Hobbit movie is the only good one and all the other ones aren't worth watching, because the book really does not do any better of the second or third movie. You know what I mean? Like, You get it. You get it. So that's, I don't know. It was just a little bit of a disappointment. Okay, number 8. And a really high rating for number 8 out of like 12, like 7 more books ahead of this, but it's a 3.5. Convenience Store Woman. Again, I just reviewed this, but like, there's nothing bad I can say about this book. It's definitely better than Another Brooklyn, but like way better. I don't know. Maybe I should drop Another Brooklyn to like a 2.5. It wouldn't change its rating spot, right? Okay. Convenience Store Woman. There's nothing bad to say about this book, but there's nothing amazing about this book. That's all I have to say. It's short, it's sweet, it's good. Good message. Okay. Next. Carrie. I gave this a 3.75, right? Okay. It's only slightly better than Convenience Store Woman because, it's twice as long, but it's a little more rich. We're getting a little more out of our story, you know what I mean? And I enjoyed how it was handled. There was never really any part of the book where I was like, oh, this is kind of bad, this is kind of boring. Like, even the weird long talky parts where, we're reading excerpts from books written in the future about the events that happen in the book, I was fine with those. Like, they were not bad. So, anyway, number 6, Eileen, which is a 4-star book. We're on number 6 and it's already 4 stars. That's halfway through. Some may say I rate too highly. Some may say. Eileen is just really good. Like, if we go from a pros and cons perspective, the pros, it is not too long. It has a really strong protagonist. It has a really awkward protagonist, but awkward in a good way. She's not like other girls, but not in the bad way. Has definitely a very unconventional story. And I like how simple it looks from the outside, but really everything kind of comes together at the end. Everything really works in this book, you know what I mean? The only reason I couldn't give it like more than just a 4 was because it did not have any kind of wow factor beyond the twist that happens in the book. Like, the twist was great, but there was no wow factor ever in the book. I was never reading this and going like, oh my god, this is the best book I've ever read, right? Okay, now we move on to number 5. It, with a 4.25 rating. This was only slightly better than Eileen, mostly because, again, I have no problems with the story ever. The only thing that I can think of is sometimes some scenes were a little long. The book could have been condensed a little bit while still retaining all the information we got. But it's slightly better than Eileen in that I feel I don't know, it handles its characters a little bit better. In Eileen, we're really only focused on one person, and I feel like Rebecca is not given enough time on the page, whereas with it, we're spending time with 7 people, but it feels a lot more comprehensive in each person's lives, I guess, which is why I put it above Eileen. Okay, now we have number 4. I raised the rating of this book. I don't remember what it used to be, but The People in the Trees has gone up to a 4.5 upon reflection. I remember saying I couldn't figure out if this was like a 5 or a 3 based on what happens in the book and what is revealed to you at the very end of the book, what is promised to you to not be true throughout the entire book, only for it to absolutely be true, and you feel like you've been tricked this entire time. Um, I decided to give it a 4.5. I decided it was deserving of it, everything, because there's nothing this book ever does wrong. This book is good from start to finish. It perfectly captures the feeling I love about like jungle exploration in books and media. And the main character is so bad and good in a good way for the story. Like the cons are getting so much less pronounced. It's not beyond a 4.5 because it wasn't perfect, right? It was a debut novel, right? It's probably not going to be perfect as the first novel that this author ever got published and supposedly ever completed. Number 10. No, not number 10, sorry. Number 3. Lord of the Flies. You might be like, Sam, what are you talking about? Number 3, Lord of the Flies. The Fries. You gave it 5 stars. How can it be number 3? Not all 5-star books are made equal. Okay? This book is a 5-star book because the latter half of the book carries the book so much, right? It's a 5-star book in terms of classical literature, but it's not a 5-star book in terms of contemporary literature. You may be like, okay, well, why'd you give it a 5-star book or a 5-star rating? Because I want to, because I'm allowed to, and I don't want to reverse that rating because that's how I felt when I read it. But it's just number 3 because I decided to up the rating of A Little Life, which is number 2, to 5 stars. I originally gave it 4.75 because there was a little bit of a lull in a 100-page lull in the book where I didn't like the protagonist and I thought I was going to hate the book because I didn't like the protagonist at that point. But the fact that I can understand that now, if I reread it, that wouldn't happen because I understand everything that happens. You know what I mean? Like, because upon rereading it, it wouldn't happen the same way, I don't think I can actually subtract any points for that in my own rating system. Like, if I know upon rereading it, it's just going to be a 5, and I'm just going to acknowledge that, then why not just give it what I think it deserves, right? So it gets a 5. Yeah. It's awesome. Read it. Okay. And that means that the number 1 book of the year was My Year of Rest and Relaxation, which also got 5 stars. Why is this a 5-star book? Because it is just the funniest book I've ever read. And it never lets up. It never lets up with being hilarious. It's just my type of humor. The protagonist is awesome. The protagonist is so awful. The whole book, how she lives her life is just perfect. This is like everything the Bell Jar should have been. And I even talked about that in my review of the Bell Jar. My Year of Rest and Relaxation is what the Bell Jar could have been if Sylvia Plath was a good writer. But she's not. And now she's dead. Big surprise. Maybe because she realized she couldn't write to save her life. Okay. Anyway, I talked about why it's a 5-star book in my review. Nothing has changed. It's the best book I've read all year. Just edging out A Little Life because A Little Life is like 6 times longer, almost almost 6 times longer than my year of rest and relaxation. Well, no, more like 5 times longer. But A Little Life is never funny. A Little Life kind of doesn't make me ever feel anything, which is disappointing, but not in a bad way. Anyway, that's it for for this part of the video. Don't click off. That's it for this part. And my average rating was 3.77 for this year, which I've watched other people's year-end reviews, and that's pretty close to what other people have been giving. So that's actually not that bad, the more that I think about it. Yeah. And now it is time to talk about my 2024 reading goals and how they are different. Let me just pull up my... I've decided to aim to try to read 35 books this year. Okay? That's not that many. 35 is doable. Not at the pace I'm going right now, it's not. It's definitely not at the pace I'm going. But it doesn't matter. Anyway, but I also have conditions I want to read. And these are included in the 35 books, by the way. I want to read 2 popular book talk books that I wouldn't otherwise be interested in. Okay? I want to get myself to read 2 books that everyone is hyping up, that on the outside, I would never pick this book up if I saw it in a bookstore, right? If I saw this in a bookstore, I would walk right by it. I'm not remotely interested in it. But because it's super popular, now I'm going to try to read it. I want to do that with 2 books this year. 2 books that blow up, but I'm like, what's the hype about? Like, I'm going to try to read them, okay? 1, 2024 Man Booker Prize finalist, or shortlist, which is the 6 books that they choose the winner from. And the Man Booker Prize, I've already read a Man Booker Prize shortlist book, but that was for like 2016 or 2015 one, and that was A Little Life. It was one of the 6 books picked, but it didn't win because the people judging them don't know anything. The people judging them actually had to read A Little Life like 3 or 4 times to narrow them down. Like, they're required to reread every single book every time they shorten the list. Okay. And I wrote that twice. I wrote a 2024 Man Booker Prize finalist twice. Maybe I meant 2023. Okay. Reread a classic in your eyes. This is kind of giving myself a free pass to reread a book I really enjoyed, probably from 2023, without thinking that I'm not meeting my goal. You know what I mean? By making it a goal to reread 1 book, then I'm completing the goal. If I don't do that, then I failed, right? So it's incentivizing me to reread books I want to reread. Read at least 3 books that are longer than 300,000 words. I'm currently reading one of them, right? And that's actually pretty easy. Like 300,000 words, I can read that in like 22-ish days. So that's not even that long. But the book I'm starting out with is this. I've been reading this for how many days? Like almost 20 days now, and I'm 13% of the way through. I hit a little bit of a lull last week where every time I tried to read, I was so incredibly tired that I read like 3 pages and just had to turn my iPad off. No, not proud of it. This book is breaking me. This book is making me think that I don't know how to read and I won't be able to finish it. But I am going to finish it. And this, should I count this as two 300,000 word books? Because this is almost 600,000 words. Like, it's 23,000 words off from being 600,000. Am I allowed to count that as two 300,000 word books? No, but I wish I could. Anyway, read at least 8 books longer than 100,000 words. But I'm not allowed to double up with the 300,000 word ones, obviously. Otherwise, that would knock out 3 of those 8 books already. So I'm not letting myself do that. Read at least 1 poetry book. I've never read a book of poetry, so I'm going to make myself read at least 1. Read at least 1 nonfiction book. Doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's not fiction, it counts. Read at least 2 series. I don't have to finish the series, but as long as I read 2 or more books in them, I'm counting that. Because I'm really not a series person. I don't like writing them, I don't like reading them, so I'm trying to make myself read at least 2 books from 2 series. I read the first Twilight book. I'm going to have to make myself count Midnight Sun or Life or Death because I have no interest in reading New Moon, Eclipse, or Breaking Dawn. I really don't. I'm gonna have to count one of the Twilight retellings or other perspectives if I want to finish one of the series goals with Twilight. Read at least 5 novellas. I read quite a few of them. I read like at least 2 or almost 3 last year. I think 2. So that shouldn't be hard. Read 2 books from 1924 or earlier. That's right. I'm trying to make myself read 2 books that are at minimum 100 years old. That's a tough goal. That's a big ask. And the general reading goal is 35 books. Okay, I'm not married to that. If I'm reading at my normal pace and I'm meeting all of these goals, then, and I'm realizing it's December and I've only read 25, I'm not gonna make myself stick to 35. 35 is just like, if you've done everything else, try to get to 35. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to hold myself to that unless it seems feasible. I would rather finish those goals than finish 35 books that don't meet those goals. So yeah, that's all I have to say. I'm only on my 2nd book of the year because I'm reading this absolute monster of a book. I'm not actually 13% of the way through. It's actually more like, it's probably closer to like 18%, because the last 150 pages out of this 1,100 page book are all footnotes or endnotes, but you read them while you're reading the book. So by the time I get to page 950, I will have read every endnote, which means that I can just skip the last 150 pages because I've already read them, right? So measuring it percentage-wise is not actually accurate, which is why I say I'm actually more than 13% done, because it's counting the endnotes as I haven't read them because they're at the end, even though I do go to them and come back in the book. Yeah, apparently I've already read more than 75,000 words of Infinite Jest. Doesn't feel like it. Doesn't feel like I've read that much. The book is good, but it is so challenging. If you want a challenging book to read Infinite Jest. This book is going to be the death of me. This book, oh my goodness. It's like I'm torturing my mind trying to get myself to read this book, because I know it's going to be very rewarding, and it kind of already feels rewarding, and good, but there are so many passages where I'm reading this and I'm like, why is this in the book? Does this serve the story at all? Because it won't have anything to do with the main characters. It'll just be this random tangent story that seems completely unrelated, that's written in completely different writing style about this totally random person who you might not even know the name of. Then it just goes on for 5 pages and you have no idea what you're reading. That's the part that makes this book mentally challenging. Okay, that's it. My review video of Twilight Infinite Jest. Imagine reading those back to back. My review video of Twilight Infinite Jest and whatever book I read after this will be coming out in probably like 60 days. It's gonna take me so incredibly long, which is why I don't want to hold myself to 35 books. If this first book is going to take me literally 3 months, or like first 3 books are going to take me 3 months, that's a lot to ask for. As long as I'm reading, I don't care. Anyway, that's it. I'm done. Goodbye.